Panini is printing more and more cards every year, right? Right? I'm not sure. I always just sort of assumed it, and I've gotten out of the ultra-modern world of collecting ultra-modern cards, specifically the Prizm stuff, pretty much. And I'm not so sure that they actually increased their print run. 2018, 2019 might have been a peak. Let's look at some numbers today. You guys tell me if I'm crazy. We'll make some observations. We'll make some assumptions because at least I'm not aware that Panini releases the actual print run of base and silver and unnumbered cards. I know there's a lot of stuff out there where they work backwards and try to guess, but I'm not so sure that more Prizm cards were printed in 2020 than in 2018. We're going to look specifically at Luka Doncic and Anthony Edwards cards, and then those 2 years in general, look at some data and let you guys come to a conclusion. And I'd love to get a discussion going in the comments to tell me if I'm crazy. So that's what today's video is about. Were more Prizm basketball cards printed in 2018 or in 2020? Hope you guys enjoy the video. Are you tired of selling your cards on eBay, creating the listing, taking the pictures, front, back, shipping, non-paying bidders? Let the pros at Fanatics Marketplace do all of the work for you. I do. That's why I use Fanatics for my vaulting and for my selling. If you've got a bunch of unwanted inventory that you've been sitting on for days, weeks, months, years, ship it to Fanatics Marketplace and let them do all the work. Just make sure when you ship it, you use the promotional code Cajun, all capital letters, C-A-J-U-N, and tell them that Cajun Cardboard sent you, and let the pros do the rest at Fanatics Marketplace. All right, guys, Brian with Cajun Cardboard coming at you from the great state of Louisiana, and I am going to be scattershot all over the place today, right? We're talking about 2018 Prizm basketball print runs versus 2020 Prizm basketball print runs. I got onto this interesting topic because I had always assumed, going back to 2012, Prizm Silvers, specifically Prizm Silvers. Prizm Silvers in 2012 doubled to 2013, doubled to 2014, doubled, tripled, quadrupled, etc. And then we got to this crescendo, this insane 2018 year where all hell broke loose and they chased the dollar and everybody was eating it up and everybody wanted to buy base and buy silver. And then we realized, oh my God, there's 40,000 Luka Doncic cards graded, and then everybody hit the brakes and then we kind of hit the reverse and went backwards, right? And we changed our mind and we're like, no, buy numbered only. And then it was like, no, we can't buy numbered only. We got to buy gold only. We got to buy black one of ones only. And then, we've sort of now started to saturate, find the right price point, and now we're taking a breath. And I think most of the hobby is more educated and making better decisions. But today's video, and I came onto this topic because I was doing a video the other day asking who you would invest your money in. Luka Doncic, Anthony Edwards, Jaylen Brown, or Jason Tatum. So you're talking about four rookies, I'm talking about rookie cards specifically, and I was talking about their silver Prizms. You were looking at four rookie cards from 4 different years of Panini Prizm basketball, their silvers in particular, and I noticed that the pops went up as they approached Doncic, but then it went down for Anthony Edwards, and I was like, well, that's odd. I wonder if just people are holding on to raw Anthony Edwards, because I would assume that even though Doncic is probably the superior player with the superior resume and superior, accomplishments right now, and probably the more highly collected of the two between Doncic and Edwards, if there were two, or remember, Edwards is 2 years after Doncic, so if the print run for silver Prizms from 18 doubled to 2019 for Zion and Morant, and then doubled again, that means there'd really be 4 times as many Anthony Edwards silver Prizms printed as Luka Doncic silver Prizms printed in 2018. You would think that even though Doncic probably will give him the edge as the superior, more collectible, more collected player right now, you would think there would still be way more Anthony Edwards Prizm silver graded than Doncic. Well, I'm not sure that's the case. So let's screen share and let's just look at some data and let's just pose some questions, and maybe I'm missing something, maybe I'm onto something, maybe I'm not onto something, or maybe this is old news. I don't know. I don't do much when it comes to ultra modern collecting, but if I did, it would be in the Prizm world. It wouldn't necessarily be the silver in the base, but let's start looking at the base, okay? So I've got pulled up on your screen right now, in Card Ladder, the comparison feature, Luka Doncic base PSA 10, Anthony Edwards base PSA 10. You can see the value here. And this is sort of how I arrived at this, right? So you can see the pop for Luka Doncic is a whopping 20,097 just in PSA 10. Oh my gosh. And then Anthony Edwards is 39,73. Let's call it 20,000 and 4,000. That's 5 times as many base Luka Doncic as Anthony Edwards. If Anthony Edwards was printed 4 times as much as we surmised, or let's just even say twice as much, right? Or let's just say more. If it was just printed more, I don't think there would be a 20% as many out there in the market. Well, what about gem percentage, Cajun? You got to look at gem percentage and figure all that out and, work it back. What we really care about is how many were printed. So how many have been graded? That's probably a better measure. And so let's look at that real quick. I think I've got that pulled up. Okay, so what did I do wrong? There it is. Okay, so there are 46,000 total graded by PSA, Beckett, and SGC. And look, pay particular attention to Beckett. Beckett graded 6,700 Luka Doncic rookies. Guess how many Anthony Edwards rookies? Guess how much Beckett's market share has dropped in the 2 years between 2018 and 2020? Check this out. 344. Only 344 brave souls decided, you know what, I'm going to grade my Anthony Edwards base Prizm with BGS, right? But 6,777 graded it with Beckett in 2018. So that should give you some idea of just how far off Beckett has dropped from where it was just in 2018. Not to even speak about how much BGS has dropped off from 2021 to today in 2024. So sad story there for once great grading company. But let's look at this. So 46,000 Doncic have been graded. This is base. 13,000 Anthony Edwards. Now, there's a couple of things that cut against this. Doncic is better than Edwards. Number one, more people graded base in 2018 than in 2021, for sure, right? The value of the Doncic card is greater than the Edwards, so the likelihood to grade that card, it makes more financial sense to grade a base Doncic than an Anthony Edwards. The gem rate, let's look at the gem rate. You have a 50% chance to get a gem on a Luka Doncic. You only have a 38% chance to get a gem on an Anthony Edwards. So all of those swing the argument in favor of grading Doncic over Edwards. So that probably leads to the conclusion that a higher percentage of the existing Luka Doncic, well, the one thing we left out is you've got 2 more years of opening the product from 2018 versus 2021, right? You got a head start in 2018, so you've had 2 more years that the 2018 product has been in existence, so 2 more years worth of, and it's diminishing returns, of course, but 2 more years of the product being available, which means more Doncic's would have been pulled than Anthony Edwards, or at least a higher percentage of those in existence that were actually printed. But all of that being said, and all of those arguments being made, if you're sitting on a base Anthony Edwards, just sitting on a raw card, it probably still makes sense to grade it. I mean, again, we're talking about small numbers here, but look at your numbers. I've got it highlighted here. If you get a PSA, what just happened? Sorry, I did something stupid. Let's go back. If you grade it and you get a PSA 9, it's not the end of the world. Look, $37, right? So if you pay $19, $20 to grade it, it comes back a PSA 9. You've already got the card. It comes back a PSA 9. You've almost doubled your money. You're not losing anything. It was a shot at a PSA 10. A PSA 10 is still $136. So if I've got an Anthony Edwards card over here, it looks good. It still makes sense to grade it. So it makes sense to grade a base Anthony Edwards even today. I know that sounds crazy. And it makes sense to grade a base Luka Doncic today. There's no question about it. The Doncic, obviously, because you're talking about, if we go back to the Doncic, you're talking about $227 card. And even the 9, you're tripling your money at the very least. And there's a huge gem rate, right? In between the 9s and the 10s, it's like an 80% chance that you're going to get a 9 or a 10. It's like a 10% chance you're going to get below a 9. And so if you're sitting on a even a okay looking raw Doncic, you're going to grade it. So a greater percentage of the Doncic will be graded. But all that being said, 46,000 to 13,000, that is almost 4x. There's almost 4 times as many graded. Let's move on. Let's get out of the base. Let's look at the silver. So there's a big disparity in base. I think, just based on what we just now looked at, I think they printed fewer 2020 Prism base cards than they did 2018 Prism base cards. Okay, I don't know about total cards, but in base, I can't draw any other conclusion. There's just too many more graded Doncic than there are Anthony Edwards, right? And again, if there's a better way to make this comparison, let me know. I'm not a math wizard, and I don't have access to the stuff that Gem Rate has access to, so maybe there's a way to really look and figure out what the print runs are. But I thought it was interesting to look at these numbers. And then, of course, when you look at these numbers, you're talking about two of the most investable ultramodern players out there, Doncic and Edwards, right? Both had great playoffs, pretty much. Both seem to be on the uptick. Both teams are reloading going into next year with the addition of Klay Thompson and the addition of, I think Dillingham. And so both teams seem to be on the uptick. Both teams will definitely be in the conversation for winning the Western Conference next year. Obviously, they can't both win it. Only one can. But that's just the comparison that I'm making. So if there's a better way to do this, let me know in the comments. Okay, we're done with base. Let's look at the silvers. And this is a little bit closer. And that's what leads me to believe, well, maybe Prizm learned from 2018 and learned that, you know what, people don't want the base. People primarily are more interested in the silver, and they're more interested in the colored and the serial numbered parallels, and they started to catch on to what it was exactly that the hobby was doing at this point, because this was about the time the hobby, the talking heads in the hobby were transitioning from buy base raw, grade it, flip it, right? Those days started to wane, and it was, no, you got to buy serial numbered. That way you protect yourself. Well, now we know even serial numbered doesn't really matter, because if you add up all the serial numbered cards for Doncic, it's in the millions. So certainly for Anthony Edwards it is. And so it's really not serial numbers. It's like low serial numbers. Only of meaningful products, those are the ones that are going to be able to kind of survive and maybe even thrive long term for Doncic and Edwards. But let's look at the silvers. So the pop for silvers, Doncic. Remember the base, almost 4 times as many were graded. For the silvers, however, the silver PSA 10s, 2311. Silver PSA 10s for Edwards, 1,785. So more, but not that much more. So if we go here and we look, there's been 8,000 silver Doncic graded. And again, let's just talk about the poor guys at BGS. What in the hell has happened to this company? Look how many BGS were graded. 2297. Literally, it's like a little bit less than a third. Let's say 30% of the cards were graded by Beckett. If we look at the Anthony Edwards silver, oh my gosh, 217. 217. That's like 4%. So it went from like 30% being graded by BGS in 2018 to like 4% or 5% being graded by BGS in 2020. But the important number to look at is 8,000 silvers have been graded. Now, anybody sitting on a silver Doncic or Edwards, you should go grade that card, period. I mean, again, I don't mean to make choices for anybody in the hobby. If you're a raw card collector, awesome, more power to you. I get it. You probably save a lot of money and you don't gamble on PSA or BGS. I get that. That's fine. But the vast majority of the hobby, if, in a hypothetical situation, you've got a silver Anthony Edwards on your desk and a silver Luka Doncic on your desk, it would make financial sense to send that card to PSA and pay them $19 to grade the card, because as you can see, if the Doncic comes back a 10, it's a 4-figure card. If it comes back a 9, it's $434. If the damn thing comes back a 6, it's $240, right? So it's a no-brainer. If you've got a Luka Doncic card, unless your kid threw up on it or ate spaghetti or pissed on it, you're going to get the card graded. For Anthony Edwards, pretty much the same thing. The odds are highly likely you're going to get a 9 or a 10. Very, very, very likely. Certainly they're likely you're going to get 8 or above. And 8 is worth more than a raw. Well, it should be. 9 is definitely worth more than a raw. So it makes sense to grade your Anthony Edwards also because you have that shot at a 10, right? And a 10 is real money. You're almost a 4-figure card with a PSA 10. But Anthony Edwards silvers, there's 5,790, let's say 5,800 and 7,800. That's not the same disparity that we saw on the base. So it looks to me like Panini, either printed about the same number of silvers, right? Because remember, we've got all those factors that lead to Doncic being graded a higher percentage of Doncic being graded than the percentage of Anthony Edwards graded. So we've got a lot of things saying grade Doncic, grade Doncic, grade Doncic, grade Doncic over Anthony Edwards, namely, most importantly, the extra 2 years that those cards have been pack pulled and had time and people to get off the fence and decide to grade it, and the grading prices have come down, and when Anthony Edwards was doing it, they were shut down for a little while. So there's all sorts of stuff that cuts against, and favors the likelihood of a Luka Doncic card being graded than an Anthony Edwards card being graded, right? People were playing that buy raw grade flip game more than they are now, although it's still being played, certainly with Anthony Edwards, I would think. But it looks to me like base was actually cut like significantly the quantity of base Prism, but the silvers look to be about the same. And by saying about the same, it gives me a good feeling. It gives me a tingly feeling, right? It makes me think, well, maybe they didn't double like they had been doing all the way back from 2012. And I think that people have done some really good educational videos on that. It wasn't just doubling. In fact, I think I did a video on that. It wasn't just doubling some years. It was really drastically increasing the quantity of silvers that were printed by some magnitude. It wasn't just twice as many. It was a big number sometimes from year to year. If you don't believe me, go back and look at Jokic silver prisms or Giannis silver prisms, or even crazier Anthony Davis and Kawhi Leonard and Klay Thompson and Lillard and Jimmy Butler from that 2012 prism. Far. We're talking about double-digit quantities, not 4-digit quantities, not 1,700. We're talking about 17. We're talking about crazy disparity between 2012 and 2020. So just go back and check that stuff out on your own. So let's look at this. This is just total number of cards graded from 2018 Panini Prism based on just PSA, right? We're not talking about Beckett. Remember, the disparity between Beckett is going to be huge between 2018 and 2020. We just looked at it on these two particular cards. We can surmise and prognosticate and project that the disparity between quantity graded by Beckett and quantity graded by Beckett in 2018 and 2020 is drastically going to be a smaller number in 2020 as well. But we're going to look just at PSA because it's just not that important. And we've already kind of come to our conclusion. And I'm looking forward to seeing what your comments are. But 350,000 2018 Prism cards have been graded. 1/3 of 1,000,000 2018 Prism cards have been graded. This is all cards. This is base, silver, black, gold, black, one-on-one. This is just the Prism base product. So this is not like Prism Fast Break, I don't think. This is not, it's not going to include Prism Fast Break, or if there was a choice. I can't keep track of all the crap, but base Panini Prism basketball, when I say base, I mean the base product, not the base card. So all the Brandon Knights, there you go. There's all your Brandon Knights. There's all your Dirk Nowitzkis, right? Everything. When they add all that up, 350,000 2018 Prisms have been graded. Watch this. 112, right? Again, the rookie class. Right? So you're talking about Anthony Edwards and then some other guys versus Luka Doncic, Trae Young. At the time, remember, Michael Porter Jr. I graded 15,000 Anthony Simons. No, I'm just kidding. I did grade a lot of Anthony Simons, but Anthony Simons was in that class. I'm trying to think of who else was in 2018. Was that Jaren Jackson Jr. as well, I think? So there's some other guys that at the time were really worth grading. Probably more so than 2020, where Anthony Edwards is clearly the cream of the crop. But there are other 2020 rookies that are viable, investable prospects. But that's a big disparity. And again, yes, I know a lot of stuff has changed. A lot, people are being more shrewd with what cards they actually do grade. In 2018, damn it, if you pulled a freaking, Marvin Bagley base Prism off to PSA, if you pulled a Jaren Jackson Chronicles off the PSA, it was crazy back then. I get it. So there is some of that in there, but it just looks to me like the print run, and this is all of the cards added up, all the serial numbered, all the base, all the silver. It just looks a lot smaller. And I know that 2018 had a 2-year head start. One thing we could do is look at 2019. I bet you 2019's got some massive numbers. I didn't even think about this. Sorry, I'm ill prepared. We're going to look at 2019. Watch this. Come on, little buddy. All right, let's go back. Let's go back here. We're going to do this together. You can't say I'm not. What in the hell is happening here? Let me just do this. Pop report. Boom. 2019 Prism. Boom. And by the way, if you've ever tried to navigate the pop report for Beckett compared to PSA, apples and oranges. PSA is super easy. Beckett is super complicated because you got to put half and hyphens and get it all exactly perfect. It's a pain in the ass. And that's scary. So 2019, this is why I'm telling you, I think 2020 was printed at a lower number. And I know you had Zion and Morant. I get all that, but damn, 655,000 in 2019. 112,000 in 2020. That's only a 1 year separating them there. So it's only a 1 year head start. And yeah, I know it's not perfect apples and apples, but it's like red apples to green apples at least. And so I'm thinking they didn't print as many cards in 2020. That's just my, that's my prediction. I don't know why that matters, but it's something to sort of take into consideration. And honest to God, it gives me a little bit of a sense of comfort that, They might have taken their foot off the gas a little bit. Am I crazy? Does it even matter? Because 112,000 might still be too many. Does it even matter? Let me know in the comments where my assumptions are wrong. Let me know what I forgot to factor into it here as criteria. And remember, I'm just hitting the freaking record button and starting to blab. It's really more about just me putting this out there and letting you guys chat about it, and kind of I'm almost asking you to educate me on this. Now look, it ain't like I'm gonna go out and buy a buttload of Anthony Edwards cards because 1,700 is still too many silvers. 8,000 is still too many, base or whatever, so 299 is still too many red, to be quite honest with you. There's a million reasons I'm not going to go out there and buy those cards. And to be fair, I own 4 Anthony Edwards cards and 2 Luka Doncic cards. So I'm not hyping these guys. I'm certainly not hyping one over the other. And I've already done the video on where I would put my personal money if you forced me to buy, between Anthony Edwards and Doncic and Tatum and Jaylen Brown. If you missed that video, go back and check it out. I'll try to link it on here as the video that shows up on the at the end of this video where you can go watch that one. But I don't know. I was very surprised when I saw the pop report on Anthony Edwards because we saw Jaylen Brown pop report increased to Jason Tatum. Pop report increased to Luka Doncic. Huge boom in the population for base and silver. Then to Zion and Morant. Huge, even a bigger boom in base and silver. And then we see it regress massively to Anthony Edwards. And I know there's a lot of reasons for that, but it still seems like even with all those reasons, it's not even remotely close on the base side, and the silver side is lagging way behind as well. So I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video where I really came to almost no conclusion whatsoever. It's really more like asking a question. Keep collecting, stay positive in the hobby, and peace.